KG or Tim Duncan? Who's the better player in their prime?
Okay, I'm in their prime. I'm gonna say KG because KG carried that team. He carried Minnesota. Tim Duncan had help in his prime. You know what I'm saying? He had
the main one, but
he had a great line of veterans when he first came in the league. You know, D-Rob, Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, Mario Ellie. But KG carried that Minnesota team. You know, at first when you thought about Minnesota, that's who you're thinking of. You know, when you thought about San Antonio, at first, you know, you're thinking about David Robins because, you know, he was the admiral, that was the anchor, he was the face of that team. In the prime, from the door, no, I would say KG.
I'm gonna go with Ticket as well too. Ticket man, his energy is infectious, man, and how hard he played, the type of dude he is, man. You want to go to war with guys like him. I'm not saying you don't want to go to war with a guy like Tim, because Tim showed it.
Yeah, you do.
He's a champion, but just more for how I am. I think me and KG would have vibe way more than I think me and Tim would.
Kevin Maurice Garnett, also known as KG and the Big Ticket. It's no secret that KG was a legendary player and had a long, marvelous career. He was a lengthy 6'11" power forward who was a 15-time All-Star, a league MVP, and an NBA champion. Yet despite all of his prestige and all of his recognition, I think KG is still a bit, dare I say, underrated? By the end of this video, you'll know why. KG was drafted in 1995 by the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was entering the NBA straight out of high school, and it didn't take very long for him to start building his reputation there. As a 20-year-old, in only his second year in the league, KG had already made the All-Star team. As the years went on, his skills continued to improve, including his scoring, rebounding, defense, and leadership. As a 23-year-old in the 1999-2000 season, KG made his first appearance on the NBA defensive first team. This was just the beginning of one of the most legendary defensive careers in NBA history. KG brought an energy and an intensity to the defensive end of the floor that was contagious. In Garnett's career, he won the Defensive Player of the Year award in 2008. He made 12 All-Defense teams and 9 First-Team All-Defense selections, which is tied for the most in NBA history. Not only was he constantly causing havoc on defense, but he was also a monster on the boards. KG averaged a double-double over his career, and between the 2004 to 2007 season, he led the NBA in rebounds for 4 straight years. That's the third longest streak in NBA history, behind only the streaks of Dennis Rodman and Moses Malone. While dominating on the boards and defensively in his prime, he was also carrying his squad offensively. When he was with the Minnesota Timberwolves, he quite literally did everything for his team. No greater example of that than in the 2002-2003 season, when he led his Timberwolves in points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals. In the history of the NBA, only 5 times has a player led his team in all 5 major statistical categories over the course of a season. These players were Giannis in 2017, LeBron in 2009, Pippen in 1995, Dave Cowens in 1978, and of course KG in 2003. Now I want you to think about this for a second. What do all 5 of these players have in common in each of these seasons? All 5 of these players were seriously lacking in the help department. Other than Cowens in 78, none of these players played the majority of the season with a legitimate second superstar. This essentially sums up KG's struggles on the Timberwolves during the early years and throughout the prime of his career. Despite the fact that Garnett was going out there every other night, dominating the Western Conference, and continuously being an MVP candidate, his T-Wolves just couldn't make it to the NBA Finals. Context is important when understanding KG's struggle with the Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves were an expansion team added to the NBA in 1989. Until Kevin Garnett showed up, they were a joke of a franchise and didn't make the playoffs a single time. Even sadder than that, the Timberwolves never even had a 30-win season prior to Kevin Garnett. In a nutshell, KG played his first 12 seasons of his career for a bottom-tier franchise devoid of championship-level talent. You may be asking yourself, why is this important, and why am I harping so heavily on this T-Wolves franchise? Well, it's essentially to make a point about this comparison. Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. These were two very similar players who were the cream of the crop of NBA power forwards throughout the 2000s. Many of us who are old enough to have seen these two players in their prime can testify to this, but during their prime, Kevin Garnett appeared to be every bit as good of a player as Tim Duncan. Go look at the stats that reflect this as well. Offensively, defensively, rebounding, leadership, and heart, these guys were almost parallels to each other in terms of production. In hindsight, the comparison may seem a bit ridiculous considering that Duncan is a 5-time champion and KG only won once. But KG spent his best years playing for a weak Timberwolves franchise, while Duncan spent his entire career playing for arguably the most well-ran franchise in the entire NBA. KG on the Timberwolves played with Marbury, Serbiak, Sprewell, and Sam Cassell. Compare that to Tim Duncan, who played with Robinson, Ginobili, Parker, Bowen, Kawhi Leonard, and LaMarcus Aldridge, all under coach Greg Popovich. If you flip their careers and put KG on the Spurs and Duncan on the Timberwolves, you may just have 5 championships for KG and 1 championship for Duncan. Maybe. Just maybe. I'm not saying this as a disrespect to Duncan, the greatest power forward in NBA history. I'm saying this as a belief in Kevin Garnett and that he was on that level of greatness. When Garnett was finally traded from the Timberwolves to the Boston Celtics, he was finally surrounded by superstar talent. And the result? He won the championship immediately, was recognized as the Defensive Player of the Year, and instilled his leadership, loyalty, and intensity into that Celtics team. Also consider that when KG joined the Celtics, he was without question past his prime, as you can see in his drastic drop in overall production as he was now into his 30s. This is rarely mentioned, but that single championship Boston Celtics team could have won multiple championships or even been a dynasty if tragic injuries didn't cripple their team. The Celtics convincingly won the championship in 2008, and their title defense was ruined in 2009 when Kevin Garnett strained his knee and missed the entire 2009 NBA playoffs. The 2009 finals were supposed to be the finals rematch between the Lakers and the Celtics, but because of Garnett's injury, we instead got to see Kobe whoop up on a less proven Orlando Magic team. I say this as a lifelong Lakers fan. We were pretty fortunate that year. I'm not sure the Lakers would have been able to beat a fully loaded Celtics team in the 2009 finals. In 2010, when the Lakers and Celtics did have their rematch in the finals, the Celtics were in a good position, leading the series 3-2, but that's when the Celtics starting center Kendrick Perkins tore his MCL and PCL in Game 6. He was the help with interior defense that Garnett needed to go up against the Lakers' bigs. The Lakers took advantage, destroying the Celtics in Game 6, and then won a nail-biter in Game 7. Kobe famously shot extremely inefficiently in the deciding 7th game, but Bynum and Pau Gasol had their way in the paint, taking advantage of the absence of Perkins. If these brutal injuries hadn't occurred, it's very likely that Kevin Garnett could have three-peated with these Celtics. Essentially, Garnett's talent was worth way more than the single championship would indicate. If he had been more fortunate and just a few of his unfortunate circumstances had been more in his favor, he could be viewed, or at least in serious consideration, as the greatest power forward in NBA history. He was a monster on both sides of the ball and in just about every aspect of basketball. In NBA history, only 4 players have ever won both the League MVP award and Defensive Player of the Year award during their career. Those players are Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Michael Jordan, and Kevin Garnett. To further emphasize how much of a unique all-around monster KG was, listen to this. He has over 25,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, 5,000 assists, 1,500 steals, and 1,500 blocks. KG is the only player in NBA history to hit all of these milestones. Any of you have a player that you always feel like doesn't get his due? Like he's good, and he's universally recognized, but even with that recognition, you still feel like he's criminally underrated and deserves more respect. Let me know in the comments section who that player is for you, but for me, That player is Kevin Garnett.